Christian Car Guy radio show.
I say this calls for action, and now.
But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors.
If you need a shelter or a shoulder, if you want two arms to hold you closer, someone who listens, fills your nights with kisses, baby, you got a friend and a lover, I got you covered.
Gold. Got a dream, boy.
What was that now?
Gold. Got a dream, boy. Got a song? Paint your wagon and come along. And then you got to love that next line. Where am I headed? I don't know. Where am I going? I ain't certain. All that I know is I am on my way. Now, if you heard that, and then the next setup was, what are your true colors? And you may have ended, the last song there says, he has us covered, right? So if you're confused, well, me too. So obviously, we're on a colorful treasure hunt here to see where are we headed. We know it's heaven, but we got to paint our wagon. All this will begin to make sense more in a minute, I hope, right?
Yeah.
So I have my Christian Body Shop guy here to help me because he's all about paint, all about colors, you know.
Yeah, but I'm just wanting to get your take on where we're going. How are you going to tie all this together? That's going to be the question.
So here's a question that, you know, I always love questions. And any disciple, you know, that's just part of what we get to do. We get to ask God questions like that little 4-year-old child that just loves to ask questions. Well, here's some questions for you. Why is color always one of the most important factors in selecting cars? I've sold thousands, and I promise color is a huge factor when people are picking a car. And then you personally, what's your favorite color car? What car color just is like, wow, I can remember when Honda came out with that Arcadia green, and everybody had to have Arcadia green. But they're trendy, the colors there sometimes. Or that orange Charger or Challenger, oh man, with black stripe. You know, what do you think is behind that? And now, switching subjects, but it's still along these same lines, covers, right? On a cold night, don't you just love to snuggle under those covers and get warm? What is it? Do you ever know a little kid that didn't love a blanket? Or make tents out of blankets? Like my granddaughter, she could make the fort of forts out of blankets. Or what little kid doesn't just love to get under a tent? I mean, think about it. So here's another wonderful question. I really want you to ponder this with me. It's really fun to think about. Do you think Adam and Eve had blankets before the fall? So when they went to bed at night, right, they're naked, isn't it? It's a bit of a challenge. You know, what was their covers, right? It doesn't seem natural that you would just, you know, and did it ever snow in Eden? You know, did it get cold? Did it get hot? You know, what did they do when it snowed? Well,
and you have all the answers, right? You're going to give us all that. The truth.
I do have some answers. It's coming, right? Well, I believe, and I bet you do too, that the reason we love our colors and the reason we love our covers is because God does. And I think the paint job of a car is critical, and we're going to be talking about that and give you some hints along those lines. But just for a minute, go with me back to Eden, and you might be. I was not all that aware of this passage. I was a little bit familiar with it, but there is a shockingly cool passage that's in Ezekiel about the Garden of Eden that I had never seen until I was on my treasure hunt this week. Ezekiel 28:13, it says, you were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. Critical word there. Every precious stone was your covering. The sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, emerald, and gold. Now, this passage is really, really phenomenally deep in some ways, but the Jewish oral tradition, the Midrash, if you go to see their interpretation of this passage, it's really, really revealing, because if you ever go to a Jewish wedding, they have something called a huppah, or chuppah, depending on how some people pronounce it 2 different ways, but I think it's huppah. What they believe is that when God set up Adam and Eve's wedding, there were these 10 precious stone huppahs. This is what Ezekiel's describing. As Eve is on the processional to marry Adam, she is going through these huppahs. Now, if you go to a Jewish wedding, there are 4 poles. They hold up sort of a tent structure, and the sides are always open because Abraham's tent was always open on the sides for hospitality. And it's a really, really big deal. In fact, huppah and marriage mean the same thing to a Jew. Like, are you ready to huppah? They're asking, are you ready to get married? So, this was a deal, and I can assure you, and I don't know if you knew this, but the difference between a concubine and a wife is whether or not the ceremony took place under a huppah. Because, see, the huppah represents God in the ceremony, and you couldn't just huppah a foreign woman, if you're Solomon. You could only huppah wife.
Yeah, you want to make sure you huppah the right woman.
So, now think about it. How excited, just ponder with me a minute and just enjoy this. How excited could God have possibly been at this wedding? Because he knew, here's Adam and Eve, and inside of Adam and Eve were me and you and Jesus Christ and Abraham and your grandkids and your great-grandkids and that little precious granddaughter that loves to play in that fort. God knew all these wonderful people and all the wonderful animals, your favorite dog that you ever had. All these things, were coming about from Eden right there and coming from this marriage of Adam and Eve. And so part of the way that he blessed them was by using these stones. And these stones, by the way, you'll find them again. They were on the ephod, right, of the high priest that syndicated their families, and you'll find them again. Don't think that we get out from underneath this cover, because look in Revelations 21 and you will find them again. Similar stones, and they are the foundations of the city. So where am I headed? I don't know. When will I get there? I ain't certain. But we got to paint our wagon, right? And that's a fascinating thing, because this color that you think about painting your wagon with, if you're going to head to heaven, it's got to be ruby red, doesn't it, Jerry?
Oh, absolutely. What would that ruby red represent? Let me think here. I'm fixing to go into Easter season, maybe the blood of Christ.
Exactly. And, well, think about what Jesus said in Matthew 23, right? 37, when he said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who killed the prophets, how long I wish to gather you under the wings and cover you, right? He loves to cover you. So in my opinion, I think that how Adam and Eve covered when they were cold, I don't know how it works, but it was God. And if you want to snuggle with God, the only way he can get close to you is if you're in the blood, covered in the blood of his son, Jesus Christ. And so, that's kind of at the heart of what we're talking about today. But as we describe those things, I'm wondering what comes up in your mind. What do you think about what just popped up and you went, God, I've got to call Robbie. Please do. We got a special number today because we had a technical problem with our cell phone, with our regular number. It's not toll free, but most people are using cell phones nowadays anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's area code 336-896-0830. I'll say it again slowly, 336-896-0830. And one last thing before we go to the break. Have you ever been on a journey where you took off, you were headed for someplace, but you didn't really know where you were going? The example was when I was 19, a buddy of mine and we decided we're moving to Los Angeles. Now, we didn't have a job. We didn't have an idea really where we were going in Los Angeles. And, we're from Albuquerque, which is, at this point in time, 150,000 people. And we get into Los Angeles, this gigantic, miles and miles. We were lost as we could be, but it didn't matter because we weren't going anywhere. we stopped for the night and got a newspaper, found jobs. But have you ever headed for someplace where you didn't know where you were going? 896-0830, 336-896-0830. You call us. We come back.
But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful.
True colors today on the Christian Car Guy Show, Christian Car Guy Show, and I got you covered. So there's true colors, as we could see with Eve's 10 hupas, and that God had her covered in so many different ways. And what all that represents, I don't know. I have looked at all the different stones that are in the ephod and different people's interpretation. I've looked at what they interpret them in Revelation. And at the end of the day, I don't think we know. I think God likes color. I think that, it
was just the beauty of it.
It was just something to just bless them, like, oh my goodness. And when you think about how wonderful color is and how wonderful covers are, what does that stir in your imagination? If we've been talking, we would love for you to call and share that with us. I have to get the new number, 336-896-0830, 336-896-0830. Or when, like Paint Your Wagon, where am I headed? I don't know. When have you ever gone on a journey where it's a good thing God had you covered, and you took off for places unknown? And I was describing and it didn't matter that you were totally lost because you had no place to go and you had no real time. You had to be there. So
you were right on time. That's all I can say.
Yeah. So it was really a very unusual experience. I'm really glad I did it now. And at the time, my family thought I was nuts. And so I leave Albuquerque and I drive to Los Angeles, Peter Somas and I get there. And we're like, Los Angeles is huge. When you're from Albuquerque and you drive into Los Angeles, you're like, oh, what in the world? This is unbelievable. And I figured we'd run into the ocean sooner or later because you can only go so far west. Wanted to see that. But ended up in Burbank that first night, just totally lost, trying to find our way to something. And it didn't matter because we had no place to go. Got the newspaper, found jobs on Century Boulevard. Gunther Langer Buick was hiring a parts man, and I needed a job. So that's we got that job, went down, got an apartment at Redondo Beach, and I was a Los Angelian. But how about you? Have you ever taken off on an adventure like that, where you I have no idea where I'm going? Well, when you think about heaven, it's that kind of an adventure, right? You don't really know you're going to get there, exactly the directions. I know you trust God has it covered. And when, you're not exactly sure about that either. So that song from the beginning of Paint Your Wagon, which is a significant movie in my life, I'll tell you why. 2 of my daughters are named after they call the Wind Mariah song because they say the rain is Tess. That's my first daughter. And the fire's Joe, and they call the Wind Mariah is my second daughter. So, you could say I like that movie. But when you think about the beginning of the song, where am I going? I don't know. When will I get there? I ain't certain. But you got to paint your wagon, Jerry.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, so many times, the human nature in us is that we want to be in control of that, and we want to know exactly what's behind the next door. But so many times, God wants us to step out in faith and walk through those doors, not really sure what's on the other side of that. And that's a tough place to be. Well, I don't say it's a tough place to be. That's a place where you've got to really have faith, and you've got to really be assured of where your faith is and where it lies. that makes sense.
I do. And I think about the Jesus Labor of Love, which I experience every week, which is single moms, widows, and they're in crisis. And they're asking for help, but often they have no idea what they really need. They just know this car is broken, and I have no idea how it's going to get on the other side of that. But I'm often blessed out of my socks by their faith. I mean, I had an application this week from a lady in Greensboro, and she just needs a car. She doesn't have a car. She's got a job. She's getting rides. Her car broke down 6 months ago. And if her sweet voice, it was just like, Robbie, God's going to provide me a car. She just knew it. And it was like, okay, well, since she prayed, we prayed together. Maybe you have a car in Greensboro that you were thinking about trading in, but you really won't get nothing for it anyway. You might bless somebody with it, or you got somebody in your church that you know has got a car that they just can't get rid of, or whatever the situation is. That's in Greensboro, North Carolina. You can go to ChristianCarGuy.com, or maybe you're in Raleigh, and I actually have another applications that are in Raleigh and also in Mocksville, North Carolina.
Yeah, and so many times when in those situations, it is a fact that's the encouraging part. You hate to see people in a crisis, but also it's encouraging to see their faith. Because sometimes I think my prayer is that I would have that kind of faith when I feel like I'm backed in a corner and I don't know how to get out of that corner, but I know that God's going to get me out of there. Man, that's what God, I think that's what God desires. And it goes back to that being like a child faith. Faith of a child is because what is that? It's one that doesn't let what the society says or the community says or the world we live in. It's just, I'm just putting my faith in God. And I know that my belief in Jesus Christ, this is going to get taken care of.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I am often astounded. Number one, it takes great humility to ask for help. I mean, it's hard to ask for help. And if you don't think it is, just try it. Just admit you can't do something or you're not. And so that there's humility and vulnerability of, I can't do this on my own, so I need some help. And then turning to God, which is why with the Jesus Labor of Love is, I love that title that he gave us for that, because it's pretty clear where your help's coming from this time. The name of the ministry has his name first. And, there you go. And so, the applications come in every week. And honestly, I often wonder, where are we going? Because, this is way beyond our resources. But God comes through, Jerry, time and time again. Well, we got to talk about it spring, and we got to fix our paint that we're going to paint our wagons with. We're going to talk about more on hoopahs. There's a lot more to know about hoopahs, and I got a wonderful hoopah song that's coming up in the last
a lot of hoopah going on here.
Hoopah.
If you need a shelter or a shoulder, if you want two arms to hold you closer, someone who listens, fills your nights with kisses, baby, you got a friend and a lover, I got you covered.
Your true colors today on the Christian Car Guy Show, and we got you covered, or God has you covered is actually what we're talking about. Well, we have a different phone number to call in today, and maybe it's not working because nobody's called yet, which shocks me, because I thought, you used to love to make forts when you were a kid, and you know how much you love to snuggle in the covers. I mean, all this has got to bring up something in your mind. 336-896 0830 is the number just this week to call, because we got technical problems with the number. 336-896 0830. And so, Jerry, it is a fascinating study, I think, of hoopahs. We're going to get into that in a minute, but we got to talk. It's spring. People's cars are covered in salt and all sorts of stuff. It's time to take care of your paint so you don't end up having to paint your wagon again.
Yeah, and this time of year, and for not all of the country, but a portion of it is out of the bad weather and the salting and the ice and the snow. Even though this morning I watched the news, it's not the whole country. But there's just little things that you can do once you've got through that part of the season where they're not going to be salting the roads, you're not going to have snow and stuff. Go and get the undercarriage of your vehicle cleaned. There's so many options. You can go to in your driveway and just get a good hose and a nozzle and climb up and lay down on the asphalt and just keep rinsing it out. But it's really better if you can go to the little quarter car washes that aren't a quarter anymore, the $1.50 car wash. But just get in there with that wand and just really just blow all of that stuff out of all them crevices, or you can go through some of the drive-through that are the full-service ones have that undercarriage wash. Because what you want to do is just get all of that stuff out from under that body, because there's areas that are like little cups under there that just holds it. And you may not see it this year, but next year you start seeing the effects of that stuff being
right.
Not
or
getting washed out.
Or 4 years, so that's the initial thing is you got to get off the salt and the chemicals, because they use a lot of stuff these days.
Yeah, and I also saw on on the website one of the bullet points was waxing your vehicle. I mean, make sure you wash it real well and wax it. And I love the wax you put on there. I'm not a fan of the 12-month or 24-month wax. I like the Meguiar's, which is easy to put on, but it washes itself off within about 3 months. And I think if you just do that regularly, it just works wonders on your finish of your paint.
Yeah, and that's the challenge is most of the other ones, they use silicone. And no painter I ever met in my life didn't hate that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it messes with their world.
Yeah, we love it at the shop. Somebody brings their car in. Well, this weekend, I spent all weekend cleaning it and waxing it for you. And cleaning it and waxing, they've armor-alled everything, waxed everything. And when it comes into the shop, as a matter of fact, before it even comes in the shop, outside, we have to try to get all of that stuff off, because that just contaminates the whole repair process, and the primers and the sealers and the body fillers, and even welding, it affects that. So we have to get all of that stuff off of there before we can even begin the repairs. And we state good intentions. It looks pretty. It's nice and shiny, but we have to get rid of that in a hurry.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating process of, Meguiar's wax or any, Turtle wax is a similar thing that washes off pretty easily over a period of time. And Meguiar's is a little harder. That, those things protect the paint. And a lot of people, I used to tell people, if you hold out your hand and think about, now the sun's beating down on it, what's going to happen to your skin? It's got to expand. It's got to contract. That metal contracts and expands more than your hand, because, when it gets hot. So that paint has got to flex in and out as it gets cold, as it gets hot. So as it gets hot, guess what happens? The wax that's in there melts to continue to seal that, so that if a bird flies over or some acid rain hits it or whatever else is on the paint, it protects it so it doesn't get down in those crevices.
Yeah, and hold on, while you mentioned the bird flies over, acid rain, one thing whenever I get the opportunity, I'll always say this: do not go in the kitchen and get the Brillo or the pan washing sponge with the rough stuff and go out and try to clean that off, because what you're doing then is sanding your finish. And a lot of times people get real aggressive with that, and the only repair is refinishing it, and that gets expensive. So if you're not sure what to use, stop by a local body shop and ask them, or even the paint supply jobbler that may be in your area. They'll be glad to help you out, because you can do some damage by thinking you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and most of the time, simple Lux Liquid, palm olive, whatever you use to wash your dishes is gentle enough for your car. And, with a good, they got wonderful rags these days.
Yeah, and the trick is just, don't look at it for 2 weeks. So I've been meaning to get that off of there. I mean, when you see it, pull up the water hose and get it off. Take a little bit of elbow grease and soap and wash it off, and it'll save you a lot of money, and your car will continue to look fabulous.
There you go. Well, I saw somebody tried to call in, but we didn't quite make it. The number, we're hoping it's not another problem with our other number. It's 336-896-0830. 336-896-0830. Maybe you got something that came to your mind as far as colors, why it is that you prefer your particular color, or maybe you were thinking of something as far as you went on a journey like I did one time where you were headed and you didn't know where you're going, but you got there. We would love to hear your story. 336-896-0830. So we know, have you ever really pondered, what is it that makes, like my wife, she is a red fanatic. Why does she like red so much? Well, I prefer blue. And if it's a fascinating thing at our house. Like, I like blue furniture. Oh, you would just as soon slap my face, slap her face hard as to tell her we were going to put any blue furniture in our house, because what's up with that?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I haven't been in your house, but I'll guarantee you she don't like it. There's no blue in the house, is there?
No, there is no blue in the Dillmore household, but there is plenty of red. We've actually had a red sofa, and which is fine. I've come to appreciate it, and that's her color. But do you wonder? I can't help but wonder if there isn't something about families, because obviously they were said that the red was for the first family. I'm trying to remember what it was, and everyone went down and had their own particular color, and so I wonder if there's something inside your genetics that makes you like one color over it.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is, but because there's millions upon millions of dollars spent every year just looking at colors, because what's popular in clothing is there's what's home decorative stuff, what colors, automobiles, and it's amazing, because we'll have a car that comes in, and there are some cars out there that have the ugliest color. And I think, who in the world would go on a car lot and buy that vehicle that color? But to hear them talk, I mean, that is so unique. I just love that color. In which you're thinking to yourself, I wouldn't be, I would just as soon walk than drive something that color. But that's what they want. In their eye, that's the most beautiful thing they have ever seen.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I love a yellow car. I love yellow cars. I think they're just outstanding. They just, wow, look at that. Other people say, you wouldn't catch me dead in that. And I remember they had some really strange colors of lime over the years. And some of them I would have thought, oh, my word, what were they thinking when they came up with that particular color? But still, somebody would buy it and somebody would love it. And so there's obviously something that's in this that's significant. And so we would love your story. 866-348-7884. Oh, I'm giving the old number. 336-896-0830. 336-896-0830. And so, we promised we would talk about hoopahs. And so, this is another idea of, God's covering. But before we get to hoopahs, we have Nancy's in Chapel Hill, and she wants to know how to get tree sap off of her car. Here you go, Jerry. Nancy, you're on the Christian Car Guy Show. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Robbie.
Great to talk to you. Well, now the bump music comes on. I'm sorry, Nancy. We are going to be right back. Please hang on. We're dying to answer your question about tree sap. They have tree sap in Chapel Hill?
Oh, lots of it.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
All right.
Well, if you ever plan to go to West,
I wait here at the chuppah on our wedding night, with my parents standing firmly by my side. My heart is racing, this is the moment, I am no longer alone. Our future starts as the hall doors open wide. Through the light you do appear, my prayers answered loud and clear, for a soulmate filled with beauty, charm, and grace, that together we may build a home of peace and love fulfilled.
The Hoopa song, like, wow, there's a young Jewish man singing that on YouTube. It's absolutely a phenomenal song. He's wearing a yarmulke, right, as the cover over, and you get the whole picture, and you can actually see Christ in the light. When you hear him sing that song, and you're like, but they missed the point. It's so sad, but it's so beautiful. It's absolutely stunning that Hoopa is a picture of God's covering, of God's love that's been there since Edom and has us covered in all so many ways if we would accept the covering that he's given us in Jesus Christ. And that's I cried like a baby when I was recording that song, actually. It was like, oh my goodness. This guy is really, really got the picture of what that wedding is going to be with Christ. But before that, we got to cover our cars so they don't get tree sap and bird poop. We got Nancy on in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
And Jerry has some advice for you, Nancy.
Yeah. So
That
Nancy,
would be great.
so what do you have? Tree sap? A lot of it.
Well, I drive around to patients' homes for a living, so I am in farmland and all sorts of places, and it is really hard to keep my car clean. And I found that those places you go that they do like 5 different things to your car when you drive through it don't clean the car. When I wipe it down afterwards, it's worse. It's like really dirty. But I have areas where I think it's like tree sap and sometimes like stuck on bird poop that I don't want to dig into it, but I don't know how to get that out at all. And then there's areas that have just started this year where a clear coat or whatever you call that very top cover is like flaking off, and I've never had that happen in a car. So I'm like, something's really going on with this car surface.
Yeah, part of it sounds like maybe easy to take care of. The latter part, the clear delaminating, which is the clear releasing from the base coat, is a bigger issue because there's really only one way to repair that, and that's a refinish job. So that's not news you wanted to hear, I'm sure. But as far as the bird droppings and the sap, and I always will tell people the best thing to do is just be aware of your car. The sooner you address that, most of the time, the easier it is to get it off. And the first place I always say start is just real soapy water, and take a microfiber rag or a real soft rag and just soap it up real good. You may have to do it a couple times, may even have to let it sit on it and sort of soak into it. And then most of the time it'll bring it off. You got 2 different issues. Usually sap may stain your paint. It's probably harder to get the majority of sap off, but it doesn't really etch into the paint as much as bird droppings do, because the acid in those will etch in and really damage the paint further into the clear and damage that clear coat. But the best thing to do is just try to do it early. And when you start getting the delamination, it all depends how bad it is. Sometimes you can say if it's just a few areas, try to keep wax on it, and may slow the process down a little bit. But most of the time, if it starts to delaminate, and it's
well, also I would say about the delaminating part, what kind of car is it, Nancy?
It's a Nissan Altima.
Okay. So
I plan on having it a long time.
Good.
My last one, it was almost 300,000, and I still sold it working.
because
I keep that engine going good.
that's a defect in the paint, and Nissan knows that. And so, that isn't something that was caused by the way you took care of the car. That was something that was caused by a factory defect. They didn't have the paint mixed right when they did it originally, and they know it. And so sometimes you can get Nissan's attention, because they do know it, by writing letters to Nissan customer care. The dealer would, of course, love to repaint your car for free, but the Nissan people are the ones who are going to have to make that decision. And so the pen is still mightier than the sword when it comes to getting delamination taken care of. So a letter to the manufacturer would be my next step. It doesn't matter how old the car is. They still are the ones that were the real cause behind that, right, Jerry?
Yeah, and what you have, most of the lamination is caused by the fact of paint finish. You have different type of materials that aren't compatible. You layer in it, and you may have an acrylic base coat with a urethane clear, and what you have is the dry time is different. The chemicals are different, and that causes, with the course of time, to start peeling away from it because they don't cure out at the same time. They don't have the same chemicals in them. So it's sort of like they work against each other, which has been a big issue in the automotive industry for a few years. You're slowly see less and less of it because it's more of a urethane or a water-based system now.
Right. Well, yeah, Nancy, great questions. Thank you so much for calling in.
You're calling from Chapel Hill.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say Chapel Hill was talking about tree sap falling out of the trees. I know there's a lot of tears from last night's game. That was a heck of a ball game. Those who were able to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have a
Definitely.
great day, Nancy. God bless.
God bless to you, too. I just love to hear you guys all the time.
Well, we
Keep
really
going.
appreciate your listening. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, again, when you think of Jesus's time, or when you think of Solomon's time or David's time, this idea of a huppah is not a new thing. And so, this was something that I believe, especially if you look in the Song of Solomon, the first chapter, you come out right to the second to last verse, I think it's verse 16, where it says, our marriage bed is verdant. It may be the translation you see. Well, when you look deeply into that word of what they're calling a bed, sometimes it's translated couch, but the Hebrew of that is arch. And what they're talking about is a huppah.
It all goes back to the huppah.
It goes back to the huppah because God has got us covered. You see, there's so many things. If you think about the word cover in the Bible, right? The word that where Noah covered the ark with pitch, that is the same word as the cover that's over the mercy seat. It's the same Hebrew word. So we know the eventual cover over the mercy seat is Christ's blood. There's all these things that are pointing to how he has us covered. And oh, by the way, in a marriage ceremony, if you're married, I'm thinking you would agree with me. If there was a place where you really want to be covered by God, it's right there, because that's where Satan is going to attack that like crazy. He knows that family will bring you more joy or bring you more heartache than anything else you have in your life. I mean, this is where the literally rubber meets the road, I'm just saying. And having that huppah, where you've got Christ like a hen covering you, like, that's the picture of how we can make it happen. So even in your car, we need to cover it with God, right? Put a little yarmulke on your car and away you go.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing real quick before we go off is the fact that, what's kind of cool when we sit back and look at some of the Old Testament and those word pictures and you see God's love. It's the same love we experience, or God wants to experience with us today.
There you go. Well, we are so grateful, like Nancy, that you're listening to the Christian Car Guys Show. Maybe next week we'll have her regular 866 number back. That'd be wonderful. Remember this week, right, to think about where has God got me covered? And when you snuggle under the covers, maybe just think about where the original covers came from and whether Adam and Eve were actually being covered by God and what that looked like. How cool is that? So think about that. Slow down. Jesus walked everywhere he went. Got it all done in 33 years. Thank you for listening to the Christian Car Guy Show.